What's going on, guys? Chris from AutoAcademics here, and we are with Indian Motorcycles to get a first ride on something with two wheels. What we're riding today is the totally redesigned 2025 Indian 101 Scout. Some people call this midsizer the Scout 101 edition, and you'll probably hear me refer to it that way later. But whatever you call it, Indian has made some nice improvements over the previous generation. For starters, while plenty of options are available, our sunset red metallic tester was stocked with a 19-inch front wheel wrapped in a M.S.R.P Cruise Tech 130 section tire and a 16-inch 150 section rear. The fully adjustable forks are 43mm inverted, and there are dual piggyback shocks in back. The Gunfighter seat has a height of just 25.7 inches, and when combined with its narrow standover, forward controls, and 6-inch moto-style risers, you get a sporty yet still comfortable cruising position. A quarter fairing and windscreen surround the LED headlight, and the brakes consist of dual 320mm rotor 4-piston Brembos up front, and a single 298mm rotor 1-piston caliper in back. ABS is standard on all models, 5 to be exact, and Indian offers 3 trims for each model. The biggest change, however, is the fuel-injected Speed Plus 1250cc liquid-cooled V-twin engine. And while all 2025 Scouts have one, the 101's is tuned to make 111 horsepower and 82 foot-pounds of torque at 6,300 RPM. A wet clutch handles the 6-speed transmission with belt drive, and all the nasty stuff exits through the 2-into-1 exhaust, which sounds okay for stock. The tank is 3.4 gallons, and it's all supported by a new steel tube frame. Being that this is a new bike in 2025, there's a bit of tech too. Front and center is what Indian calls the Ride Command System. It uses a 4-inch touchscreen display and manages your Bluetooth audio, navigation, ride modes, cruise control, and traction control. There's also keyless ignition. Yup, just like most cars today. So as long as the fob is on your person, you just press a button to turn on the electronics, then hit the starter button. Alright, now that we've got that out the way, it's time for the ride. Alright guys, so here we are on the 2025 Indian Scout. We're waiting for a couple of riders that got caught by the traffic light, so wait for them to catch up. But this is the Indian Scout 101 edition. It is a sportier model. I'm used to riding sport bikes with the foot pegs a little more behind me, so my feet are in front of me right now, kind of like a lazy boy chair, which I've got to get used to. It always takes me a mile or so to get used to that when I first get on one of these bikes. But after that, it starts to become more normal. One thing I can say is, especially in this traffic, I do like the low seating position on this bike. As you can see, I've got a nice bend in my knees. I don't know if you can see that or not. Nice bend in my knees. And so, you know, I like to say I'm of average height, but in reality, that's just 5'8". So, you know, us shorter guys like the the shorter or lower seats, I guess. So again, this bike, I reviewed a Scout a number of years ago, and that particular bike had you know, it was a nice, fairly beginner bike, I would say. But this bike was updated, and so this 101 has, well, first, all the Scouts have larger engines now from the previous gen, so that's nice. But then also, this particular 101 edition has higher horsepower than all those other bikes. So with that being said, I can definitely feel the additional power. It's nice. I mean, I liked the original Scout, the first one that I rode. I thought that was a fun little bike. You know, it had decent handling thanks to its smaller size. This one has very similar dimensions, which is nice, but it has more power to go with it. It's got nicer suspension. It has, brakes feel pretty good. They're not grabby, but they have a nice pressure and seem to have decent power for cruising around here. Also, I hope you guys can hear me okay, because I have a new microphone set up. As you guys know, I usually have let me catch up a little bit. As you guys know, I usually have a lot of voiceover during the ride, but I figured I'd try something a little bit different this time. And so far so good. But of course we'll find out once we get back and check all this footage. But anyway, it is an absolutely beautiful day out here today. It's warm but not hot. You can definitely feel the humidity kicking in here in Georgia. I'm in Marietta right now, and it's a great day for a lovely ride. The throttle response is smooth. It's not jerky like the Kawasaki ZX6R that I rode last time, but that's to be expected for that bike. You know, that's a sport bike, so of course it's going to have a lot more aggressive tendencies. This one is a lot more reserved, but still sporty. Still a fun little bike. I still having problems finding my foot pegs. Oh yeah, she pulls nicely. Not bad. There's a little bit of vibration in the seat. That's to be expected for this type of bike. It's not nearly as aggressive as a traditional Harley, but and what I'm talking about is the vibrations. The vibrations aren't as aggressive as in a traditional Harley, but gives you that feeling that you might be looking for from this style of bike. You know, the vibrations are part of the charm. Now, I like the seating position on this. You know, this is the type of position where you could ride for miles upon miles without too much fatigue. There's no pressure on my my wrists, my palms, my shoulders. My legs are in a relaxed position, so I'm not, you know, my knees aren't cramped up, bundled up. The suspension is nice and compliant also. This isn't the smoothest of roads. Well, this part's smooth, but the road I was just on, or the part of the road I was just on, wasn't very smooth. But this soaked up those bumps pretty nicely. Felt pretty good. And I'm in 6th gear right now. You know, it's a 1 down and then 2 through 5 up configuration, as most motorcycles are. And the vibrations are a little bit more mellow. Not quite as burbly. The exhaust has a nice sound to it. It's not loud, but it does make some nice noise, you know, for a stock exhaust. So I'm not mad at that. The gauges are clear. I admit it's a little challenging to locate the tach, but I'm sure that's something that I would eventually get used to. Some of the other guys riding with us. It's a nice matte red on that bike there. But yeah, I'm sure I get used to being able to look down and locate where the tachometer is, see my revs. But to be honest, I don't really need to look at it too much. You know, you can just feel the engine, you can hear the engine. There's enough sensation that you kind of automatically know when to shift gears. And even when the revs are a little bit low, like say 2,000 RPM, you know, it still has enough torque to pull. If say you're just cruising and then traffic opens up, you don't necessarily have to downshift and get on it. But when you do get into the upper rev band, around that 6,000, this little, well, it's not a little, but this motor, it does liven up a little bit more. Like I'm cruising at 5 or 4,000 RPMs right now, and you know, there's some nice vibration, and you're definitely getting in that torque band. It's kind of difficult to really get a good feel out here on this somewhat local route, but you know, for a first ride, I'm definitely getting enough of an experience. Let me see, what else can I talk about? Oh, the mirrors. It's funny, the mirrors, they're small, but because they're circular, you actually get a pretty decent view behind you. So that's nice. You know, again, makes for good daily riding. This does have a little bit of a windscreen on the front. Seems to work pretty decent too. Like, you know, there's not really any fairings on this bike outside of that little windscreen on the front. So my legs are getting a lot of wind. It's nothing terrible. And to be honest, it feels great on this high 70-degree day. And my shoulders actually aren't too bad.
you know, my shoulders aren't too bad as far as wind is concerned. It doesn't feel, you know, I'm not getting a whole lot of pushback or anything like that. So that's nice. You know, your legs might get a little fatigued from the wind if you do a long ride. Hopefully you guys can still hear me because I just opened my shield. But you know, your legs might get a little fatigued if you do a longer ride on the highway with the wind beating on them. But locally it's pretty good. Again, at that point there, couldn't find my foot pegs. So when I pulled up, I was still in second gear. But, you know, this is a first ride. I don't own this bike, and I don't typically ride bikes. When I did ride regularly, my pegs were behind me, you know, my clip-ons were behind me. So it's definitely a feeling that I always have to readjust for and you know, get that muscle memory back again. But it's not bad. The bike is stable too. You know, at first, when I first pulled off, I was wondering about the stability of it, but once I got moving, it's actually very stable. So, all right, we're wrapping up. We're pulling back into the dealership. So this was my first ride on this Indian Scout 101 edition. I gotta say, it was a nice little ride. I enjoyed it, and come on, there we go, find the gears again. Oh, pulled up there. All right, getting my parking instructions. But anyway, let me go on ahead and get ready to sign off. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully I can get a couple more first rides in for you guys so that you can check out that side of AutoAcademics also. So I'm going to sign off. As always, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. There we go, there's neutral. Bike is off. And hit that bell notification so you don't miss what we have coming up next. All right, guys. Chris from AutoAcademics. Thanks for watching.